And we are live.
There we
What
go.
is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fit Parent Project. Today, on this episode, I am joined by a very special guest of mine, somebody that I've known for it's been like three and a half years now.
Yeah.
How is that even a thing? It's with my good friend Shal. She is an amazing individual. And we are going to be talking today, if you saw the title of this, about motherhood and pregnancy and fitness and all that kind of shit that kind of goes into that, because it can get confusing. It can be tough for sure at times, I feel like. And it's one of those things that I feel like it's kind of almost kind of like, I don't know, a not taboo, but it's like almost kind of like something that not a lot of people talk about or people have a lot of questions about. And so
There seems to be some stigmas for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, so we're going to talk about that today. And before we do, I would love if my special guest Shal would introduce yourself and just kind of give a little bit of a background on who you are, what you're all about, and all that good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you, Austin. And honestly, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate being here. It's really cool. Not only just getting to hang out with you because, we have been friends for 3 years, but getting to be a part of your podcast, which is doing super, super well. And I see all the things that you're doing on social media. I see all the client wins that you're getting. So it's just it's really cool to get to interact with you and get to be a part of this in any sort of way. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I'm Shal. Hi, everyone. I'm a first-time mom at 40 years old. My little guy just turned 4 months old a couple days ago, so we're still pretty new to this whole parent thing. I'm definitely new to this whole being a mom and working in fitness. It wasn't part of my plan. It wasn't something that I ever planned or thought I wanted, but now that he's here, I wouldn't change anything for the world. I think every parent out there knows how that feels. But yeah, it's been a lot to navigate, and just, coming from a background of fitness and coming from a background of I've been an in-person and an online trainer myself for the past 12, 13, almost 13 years. I've been in the fitness industry now. So maybe even pushing 14 years I've been in the fitness industry. So navigating it with a child, totally different ball game than what it was navigating it just for myself. So a little extra little piece of background about me is that I didn't actually think I could get pregnant because of not only my age, but with PCOS and things like that going on. So I just want to kind of give a pre-shout out to anybody out there who is looking to conceive and it hasn't happened for you yet. Get your body healthy, because I got my body so healthy that it got pregnant, even though I was trying not to. So get your body healthy, because it is possible. And even at 40 years old, you could be starting a family, even older than that. So
that's awesome.
Thanks,
yeah,
Austin.
Absolutely agree. I mean, it's one of those things, the better place you get your health and your body to, the better your chances are going to be. I mean, I've had several, so many of my clients have PCOS. It's crazy. And some of them, had struggled to conceive in the past and were having to do IVF and things like that. And, thankfully, they've been able to, have their kids, but it's one of those things, getting healthy was definitely a big part of making that a reality, because it allowed the drugs to be more effective. It allowed the need for them to be, maybe on less of it, to be able to have the same effectiveness, and just and their body just being in a place to I don't know, be in a more fertile place in a lot of ways too. So
yeah. Good job, coach.
Yeah.
High five to you.
Hey, good job to you. Good job to you guys.
We rock. Good job, us.
Yeah. Hell yeah. So cool. That all kind of being said, so, you're a new mom, and that's crazy. It's already been 4 months, by the way. Hey, congrats on keeping a little tiny human alive for 4 months. Cause it's one of those things. Yeah. Right. It's a freaking journey. And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. Kind of from getting, from being pregnant and, still working on your health and fitness to, now being, a mom and navigating that. It's just I don't know. It feels like there's a lot of different stages and a lot of different unique challenges to each stage. I feel like depending on where you're at in that process and of your journey. And so, it's one of those things where I think that we're going to kind of peel back the layers a little bit and also give people some, some assurance in some way about what they can do and maybe what they should do or what they shouldn't do and things like that. And so can you share some personal experience as far as with your pregnancy and how it influenced your approach to health and fitness now that now that we've kind of you've gotten through the pregnancy side of things?
Yeah, definitely. So I didn't actually know I was pregnant for the first like 8 or 9 weeks. Had no idea that that's what my body was. Actually, the last time we hung out,
Yeah,
I was pregnant then and did not know it. I was
that's
6 weeks pregnant
crazy.
then and had no idea. So there was a lot of like, why is my body so tired?
Mm,
Where is my energy levels gone? And so there was a lot of like not understanding what was happening and what was changing
mm,
in my body, but I knew something was changing. I knew like, I didn't feel like me. But I would say that, if anything, and I realize that I come to this from a different background than somebody who maybe hasn't been into fitness for a very long time.
yep,
But I was like, you know what? I'm going to be bringing a little human into this world and I want this little human to have the best chance possible and for
yep,
this little soul to have the best chance possible because I didn't know at the time that
yep,
I was going to have a boy, but I was like for this little soul to have the best chance possible, I've got to make sure that my body is as strong as as it can be,
yep,
because healthy mothers have healthy babies, strong
yep,
mothers have strong babies. So I wanted to make sure that I was doing my due diligence even before he got here to A, set that example,
yeah,
and B, just make sure that he was coming into the world in a healthy place. I didn't I decided very early on in my pregnancy that having a baby or being pregnant wasn't going to be the reason why I couldn't do things. It was going to be
mm.
my reason why I should be doing things. And I don't ever
Ooh.
want him to feel like he's a burden on me and like, oh, mommy never didn't get her body back because she had me, or mommy doesn't have time for this
Yeah,
because she has me. No, mommy has time for everything
yeah,
because mommy needs to set the example for you and wants that those doors open. Like I
mm,
want him to always know that he's the reason for and not the reason why I can't. He's the
mm.
reason why I have to.
I love that. That is powerful, and I agree. Like a lot of times, even coming from like the perspective of the person that didn't actually like have the baby, like it's one of those things. I've talked about before in some of my other podcast episodes or some of my content in the past, where it's just like having a kid should not be the excuse as to why you can't take care of yourself. It should be all the more reason to take care of yourself and to get that self care, because it's like you said, we got to set the example. Like we've got to, bring and that's a kind of like a perspective like that I hadn't thought a ton about too necessarily. Is like, having like the kid feel like, oh, it's my fault that my mom is, unhealthy or out of shape or is unhappy with herself because, of what me being born did to her kind of deal. And
Yeah.
so I think that that's definitely something to, you know, definitely like think about. And I think too, like you said too, strong, healthy moms, produce strong, healthy babies. And like they've done studies where they've looked at like amount of labor, like how it how long the labor process was,
Mhm.
how quickly mothers recovered like after the baby was born. And like they've shown women who maintained healthy level of activity and exercise like during their pregnancy, like up to a certain point obviously, but were having better recovery times and pregnancy journeys in general. And
Yeah.
also too, like they've shown that like babies have that whose mothers were like strength training and exercising like have in general like a higher have score higher on an IQ scale like than those that didn't, just by
Oh, so he wasn't just stealing my brain power because I
yeah, he
felt
was
stupid
literally
my whole pregnancy. He was actually getting smart
it
in
was
there
it was
because I
going
was doing
somewhere.
smart
So
things.
oh my gosh. Yeah, no,
Uh,
that's yeah. And so for you, looking back, like what were some of like the biggest challenges that you faced in terms of maintaining like a healthy lifestyle or like a routine, during your pregnancy, and like, how did you overcome those things?
So I do want to say that honestly, it was easier to maintain the routine while I was pregnant than it is with him here.
Oh my gosh.
It's
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
more of a
No, that's,
challenge now that he's Earthside than when he was in me, because like I was like, okay, all I have to do is keep you safe, but you're with me all the time and you don't need things outside of what I'm doing. You just need me to do good things for my body, and in turn that's good things for your body. So
yeah.
I would say some of the biggest challenges I faced were in the first trimester, because it changed, right? So in the first trimester, and I mean, women don't hate me, but I was one of those really lucky moms that didn't get a lot of morning sickness.
Yeah.
I did get nausea, but I didn't really get a lot of morning sickness, but I had a lot of energy issues,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
getting my energy, finding my energy when I'm used to being like quote unquote the Energizer bunny. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
always
Yeah.
joke that I'm so natty I don't need pre-workout or
Yeah.
energizer
You're
or
all over the
energy
place.
drinks, because
Yeah.
I'm like all
Yeah.
the time. But yeah, not having energy was a struggle in the first trimester. So there were days that it was like if I didn't have it that day, I gave myself grace and I was like, okay, take today as a rest day and let's go back at it tomorrow. So
Yeah.
I did put myself first trimester, my goal was to work out 4 days a week. And most weeks I did. Some weeks it was 3 days a week. Some weeks it was like, oh shit, we didn't get any workouts this week.
Yeah.
And I gave myself grace with that. And it wasn't about what I had to do, it was about what I could do.
Yeah.
And if it was one of those days where it was like, okay, there's like, I just don't have the energy. Well, what can I do? I can still go for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do? No matter what, I could be mindful of my nutrition. And
Mm-hmm.
that got really, really hard throughout every stage of pregnancy, because some people get cravings. And I
Mm-hmm.
actually I wanted cool pregnancy cravings. I was like, where's my pickles and peanut butter and all this weird shit
Yeah.
that women eat? I had food aversions. So
Oh.
things that I was used to eating, all of a sudden my body was like, nope, you are not eating that today. Like chicken,
Oh yeah.
chicken, chicken made me want to yak.
Oh.
And like, not that I don't eat red meat, but all my body wanted was beef. All my
Wow.
body wanted was beef, which is apparently not normal for a pregnancy. My
Well,
iron levels were great. They
I was
were
about to
off
say,
the
like, my
charts good.
mom, when she was pregnant with me, like, could not eat like ground beef or anything like that afterwards. Like, she still rarely eats it just because it like messed with her so much. Like, she just couldn't like.
See, and
And I
my
think
body was all about it.
and
It was
chewing
like, give
gum,
me beef.
like spearmint chewing gum, she can't do that anymore either. It makes her nauseous. Like, just because it.
Interesting.
Yeah, she had such. Yeah, those were her like two like aversions that
It's
have
funny.
carried with her even.
Chicken
So
still to this day. I'm like,
yeah,
if it's,
yeah.
I could do like a chicken breast, but if it's like a chicken wing and there's like little veins in it and stuff, I'm like,
Yeah. I think one thing to take away from this for sure is like every pregnancy is gonna come with its
every
own
journey's different.
unique, like, like not everybody has the same, first trimester, second trimester, or third trimester. Like, it's one of those things like Jessica when she was pregnant with Finn, like I think she was definitely kind of like similar with like how you were talking about, like low energy, like just
Yep.
like very tired, but like first trimester wasn't too bad, but like the second and third trimester, just like she was definitely like exhausted, but then also the nausea and like the morning sickness and stuff. I think, if I'm remembering right, like second trimester was the worst, but then third
See,
trimester kind of
that's
cleared
so
up.
interesting because mine was the opposite. First trimester, I was nauseous, but I didn't really get morning sickness. I was just
Yeah.
nauseous and low energy. Second trimester, I felt like I could run a marathon. I was
Yeah.
like all the energy in the world, everything's great. Biggest appetite you have ever seen.
Yeah.
All I wanted was spicy food and beef. Like we had tacos all the time because I was like, give me spicy things.
You-
And I never got heartburn, which is weird. Like
wow.
it just never happened. And so I joke that like, I have a little beef baby. He's
Oh my
probably gonna
god.
love spicy food when he grows up. Um
You're just living at like the local Thai restaurant or like
if we had one, I probably would have.
yeah.
But yeah, so it was a matter of like, set up what I wanted for my goals. I was used to strength training a bit more often than that, but I wanted to give my body grace. So I was like, you know what? You already walk the dog. You can probably see him behind me. You already walk the dog twice a day. Keep your dog walks. They feel good. They like, you want to keep your body in motion. And I found too that like my dog walks were when the baby would be asleep. And then when I calmed down for the day, then he'd be like, woohoo, let's go. So if and the dog walks actually made me less nauseous. So if
Oh
I
wow.
was feeling like kind of like or a little low energy, and but I was like, you know what, I can go for a like an easy walk. I would do the easy walk and no problem. And thankfully my dog is a senior, so he didn't want to do anything crazy.
Yeah.
Um so that was really cool. And yeah, I cut my workouts down to 4 days a week, and then about halfway, well, like kind of the beginning to halfway through my second trimester, I actually added in a fifth workout.
Mm.
I took a core conditioning class.
Ooh,
So I did a
cool.
pelvic floor and core
Yeah.
conditioning class with a local girl who, went through her own struggles with pregnancy
Mm,
and recovery from pregnancy.
mm,
And so she teaches a class to women. And it was cool. I was the only pregnant one woman in the class, but I got to hear about, like, how other people didn't recover so well, and
mm.
what I was doing. Actually, like, I never sneeze peed, not once through my entire pregnant, and still it's never
That's
happened
awesome.
because I did all the pelvic floor training.
Yeah.
So I did pelvic floor training once a week. And it was really gentle. It was a lot of like core breathing and like deep core work that was really, really gentle. And then I continued to strength train 4 days a week. And
Wow.
that went through most of my third trimester. Partway through my third trimester, the course ended, but I kept
Mm,
that practice one
yeah.
one day a week. So I kept my pelvic floor
Mm.
practice 1 day a week and strength training 4 days a week. But it changed because there was things that I was doing in my strength training that my midwives were like, maybe don't do that anymore. And
Yeah.
and like the thing I really want to stress about strength training for women when you're pregnant is, like, it's good for you. It's super, super good for you to keep your body strong, but be smart about it. If there's
Mhm.
something that doesn't feel right for your body, ease off or maybe take it out of your program.
Yep.
You want to be careful with like hinging things. You want to be careful. Like, I hip thrusted through my whole pregnancy, but not with a bar on my belly. I would
Yep.
use a band on my knees, and sometimes I would put a plate onto the band,
Yeah.
just to, like, my body was already giving me more resistance because it was more
Yeah.
weight than I was used to. But I did hip thrusts. I was still hip thrusting till 3 days before I went into labor.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and like I did have a planned C-section, but my body did start labor
Yeah.
before the C-section. So I was hip thrusting right up until basically my body was ready to be
That's
like, okay, let's do this. And I would have worked out that day. It just worked out that that was my schedule, and
yeah.
that was my day off of
That's so
working
funny.
out. So I was like, okay, let's go have a baby today.
I, I worked out on the day that Jessica she had Finn. We didn't know where she was going to, but but it's one of those
Good
things.
for
But
you.
doesn't quite not quite as impressive for me doing it as much
No,
as it
I think it is.
was. I was gonna say too, one thing that not people might not think about, but like, if when you're pregnant, like your center of gravity gets like shifted, like
Big time.
you might have to like accommodate certain movements, like you were talking about, like doing things differently, maybe just adjusting like the way that, like, how you're carrying the weight, or what, again, maybe even just doing entirely different exercises that are going to feel good for your body for where it's at that stage of your journey. Because like it's one of those things where, from what I could tell, is that if you're already strength training, and you have a history of strength training, like sweet, like that's great. If you're like in the middle of like your second or like third trimester, and you're like, I'm going to start strength training, okay, maybe go at it with some body weight, or go
Yeah.
lighter with it. Like, don't jump into like powerlifting whenever you're
Oh,
about
for
to have your
sure. Because you're already carrying more weight than your body's used to. So if you're
yeah,
doing body weight exercises, like, that's still strength training. And I
yeah,
think there might be a little bit of a misconception about that, as people think that I was like out there doing barbell hip thrusts and big, huge deadlifts and stuff. And it's like, I was doing hip thrusts and I was doing deadlifts and I was doing all that, like, arm work. Arm work didn't bother me at all.
yeah,
Um, but a lot of it I did with resistance bands, because it was something that, if something felt uncomfortable, if I felt that I was in the wrong position, it wasn't a matter of like, oh, get this bar off of me, or, oh, what do I do with this bar? It was like, okay, drop the band. It's not a
yeah,
big deal. And I
yeah,
still got really good workouts, and it was still strength training, but it
yeah,
was within the parameters that felt good to my body. And, anything that I could play with my dumbbells and felt comfortable with dumbbells
yeah,
and barbells, I still did it. But
absolutely,
I did use utilize a lot of resistance bands and suspension training, because I
mm,
wanted to use my core, but you
yeah,
can't lie on your back after you start really showing.
Yeah.
You can't really lie on your back anymore because it cuts off circulation. And
Oh,
if you start getting lightheaded, that means baby's not getting circulation either.
yeah.
And you shouldn't be doing planks unless you're on an angle
Mm,
because it's just too much on your abdominal wall. And that's how you
yeah.
get like separations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So weirdly enough, I don't have any diastasis recti either. And I
That's
attribute
great.
that to just like being really mindful of how I trained and doing that deep core pelvic floor work.
Yeah. How's the like, because I know for Jessica, whenever, because she had a C-section too,
Yep.
they like, she had a lot of not necessarily like core weak. I mean, obviously she had a little bit of core weakness right after, but like
Yep.
she recovered pretty quickly, but she had a lot of like nerve, like weirdness, like just like numbness kind of in the area where they had to do the C-section. For you, like, have you experienced anything kind of like that, or was the recovery pretty easy?
So they got mad at me in the hospital because I was trying to walk around like literally right after my C-section, and there was a lot of student nurses there, and I remember the experienced nurses telling the student nurses like, this is not what a normal C-section is like. Do not think that they are going to be like this. She's like, they were like, she's abnormal. And they were like, what do you do for a living? And I was like, I'm a fitness coach. And they were like, okay, this is why. They were like,
Yeah.
most people are not as active and don't strength train throughout their whole pregnancies.
Hmm.
But I was literally like, I was ready to go
Yeah.
pretty much right away. They had to tell me, like, please don't do your normal walks. Please don't do anything for a couple weeks. Let it heal.
Yeah.
I was definitely strength training before I got to the 6 week mark because my body was good. Like my midwives were even like, nope, you're good. Like
Yeah.
you're totally fine. I
Yep.
did take a couple weeks to recover. Well, okay, let's be honest. I took 1 week fully off of everything. The second week after Levi got here, I started doing my pelvic floor breathing again
Yeah.
and doing pelvic floor work that I didn't have to like get up. Like I wasn't like getting up and doing squats and
Yep.
pelvic floor squats. I was just doing the breath work and what I could do
Mm.
from a couch or from a lying down position or what I could do while I was nursing him. So
Yeah.
I started retraining my core and my pelvic floor right away. And then by week 3, it was like, okay, I was back doing my normal walks. By week 4, I was back to strength training. And I started with isolation training instead of compound lifts. Like I was
Yep.
doing bicep curls and things like that, as opposed to doing like full squats and stuff like that.
Yeah.
By 6 weeks, I was doing everything.
Yeah, and I think maintaining like the routine, it's, and a lot of times like whenever we go through periods of like recovering from something, whether it's pregnancy or surgery or being sick for a long period of time or whatever it may be, like,
Yeah, or
you know,
injuries or whatever.
yeah, maintaining the routine is like more important oftentimes than like what is in the routine itself. Like yeah, like the workouts might not be like, yeah, it might, you're not going to be body recomping like crazy like in the middle
No.
of your pregnancy, other than for the pregnancy, other than what your body's already going to be doing for
Yeah, your
itself. Like,
body's already recomping.
yeah, and so it's like, you know, like we're not trying to like set some like PRs and personal records and things like that out there right now. Like we're the value in it is just like maintaining that routine, so that way whenever you are out of that, like, you know, season of your life, like you're just able to get back after it all the faster. Like kind of like what you just said, like how, like, I mean, we won't send this episode to your doctors because they don't need to know, but
You know
about
what?
how you bounce back.
I didn't have doctors.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's
I
right.
only had midwives where I
Yeah.
lived. And so I couldn't even deliver my baby where I lived. I had to go. And that
Mm.
was another reason why resistance bands and suspension training became such a big part during the 3rd trimester, was because I couldn't stay where I lived. I had to get an Airbnb somewhere
Oh
else to
yeah.
be close to a big enough hospital to
Yeah.
deliver. They do deliver babies where I live, but not if you're a quote unquote complicated pregnancy. And because
Mm.
I'm 40, I'm a quote unquote complicated pregnancy. So they were like, nope, can't have you here.
Yeah.
So yeah, doing stuff like that, it just, made more sense to take those things with me and stay
Yeah.
active during that part.
Kind of rewinding back just a little bit, kind of like back to pregnancy, like
Yeah.
and lifting while pregnant and things like that. Like I remember whenever you made your announcement post, and like I was like, holy shit, well, that's exciting news. But then I remember too, you were documenting a little bit of like, you know, your you know, fitness journey while being pregnant, and there being a lot of like dumbasses, just to put it bluntly, like leaving stupid remarks and just like ignorant remarks and things like that. And like, and I think that, you know, other moms out there, or like, new moms, or people who are, or women who are pregnant right now, like, who are wanting to maintain like their health and fitness, like might be nervous about that ignorant judgment or whatever it may be. Like, how did you, navigate that, or how did you handle that, or like any advice to the people out there? They might not have their lives on social media like we do necessarily, but it's just one of
Right.
those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a part of me that, again, is used to it because I've been on social media so much.
Yeah.
But, checking in and knowing that, like, Joe Blow, the real estate agent, probably knows less about my pregnancy than my midwives do. And
Yeah.
if my midwives are saying everything you're doing is fine, Shal, everything that you're doing is healthy, we're really proud of you for what you're doing, then why would I take the advice of somebody who's a real estate agent? And, and like, I, I do mean this from a good place, but like, you should never take advice or criticism from somebody you wouldn't trade places
Oh
with.
yeah.
And
Yep.
there was a lot of women that were telling me that there was it's crazy because there was all these moms that were like, yeah, and they were sharing like, I downhill skied my whole pregnancy and I did, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Like,
Yeah.
I love that you did that. I would be scared to do that personally. And
Yeah.
that's where I think like just knowing your own body and knowing being honoring what feels good to you
Yeah.
is a big part of it. If it feels good to you, great. If it doesn't feel good to you and maybe just walking is what feels good to you, then great, power to you. Do what you can do and what
Yep.
feels right for you. But there was a lot of stigma, and you're right. I did have a lot of people coming and like really like attacking me
I
and saying
know.
that I was promoting unhealthy pregnancies and all this stuff. And they were like, you're promoting unhealthy high risk pregnancies. And I was like, where are you getting that I'm high risk? Like, is
Yeah.
it because of my age? Is it because I got pregnant in a situation where most people struggle to get pregnant? Like, what
Yeah.
about this is high risk? My, like, according to um my medical team, I'm not high risk.
Yep.
And knowing my body, I feel great. I feel
Yep.
healthy. Like, I feel fantastic.
Mm.
So there's a lot of like knowing yourself and knowing what your comfortable points are, but there's also a lot of like, and I'm kind of spite driven, to be honest. Let's be totally honest.
I
I'm a
feel
little
you
bit of a
there.
spite driven person. If you're like, you can't do this, I'm like, oh yeah, watch me.
Yeah.
Um, but there was also a lot of like, would I trade places with this person?
Mhm.
Like, I would look at these people on social media and I'm like, I don't want your life. I don't want, like, your philosophies don't align with me.
Yep.
And I think it's really archaic to just assume that because you're pregnant, you should be on bed rest and not do anything. And I think
Yep.
that actually sets you up for, like, there are situations where yes, there are going to be high risk pregnancies that need to be in bed rest or that need to
Yep.
do very minimal, but that
Yep.
doesn't mean you can't be aware of your nutrition. That doesn't mean
Yep.
you can't do some stretching or do some like gentle breathing that's good for your core. It
Yep.
just means that maybe you're not going to be working out in the gym 4 days a week like I did. Like, that was the right path for me.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that it's the right path for everybody, but I do want to say that the more active you can be and do the good things for you, the better it's going to be. And
Yep.
it definitely made my recovery so much faster. But there was naysayers,
Yep.
and I just had to look at them and be like, you know what? I don't want to be where you are. Like, I'm looking at you and, no offense to these women, but you're still carrying the baby weight and your kid's 5.
Yep.
And that's like, I want different things. I don't
Yep.
want to have a kid and tell, like again, what we were talking about, like the burden being on the child of like, oh, mom's not healthy because of me. I
Yep.
never want my kid to feel that burden.
Mhm.
And I was looking at these women who were telling me like, oh, you're promoting high risk unhealthy pregnancies and stuff like that. And it was like, actually, no, I think you are.
Yeah.
And like, my like, I have your own philosophy if you want, but like,
Yep.
your kids are growing up thinking, mommy's like this because of me. Mommy's like this because of me. And that's a burden that they have to carry, where my kid's going to be like, my mom got strong as shit for me.
Yeah.
My, my
Hell
mom's
yeah.
a badass. She got more badass because of me.
Yeah. I love that. And yeah, I think it's one of those things like, because I remember some of the idiots on the comments. As I was sometimes, because after that first one, because I saw one of them and I was like, I wrote out like I think I
I
wrote out
remember it.
a four fucking paragraph. I don't even remember. It was a long ass response,
It
just
was.
like ripping into them, because I was like nope. I was like, but it's just one of those things. Like, I totally agree. I mean, like, because I think I might have even done a podcast episode on that concept. Like, if you wouldn't trade places with them, like, probably shouldn't take their advice, like on the thing that you were looking for advice for. And that's something too, I think that's really interesting is like something like parenthood and especially like motherhood in a lot of ways is there's definitely a spectrum of both sides of the spectrum, like some, you know, more in the middle, but like, you know, I feel like it's like once you be like when you're pregnant and then once you're a mom, especially new moms, it's like you're like people are just like looking under the magnifying glass, just
Oh,
like trying.
scrutinizing you.
It's so like
It's so judgy.
it's judgy and like tribalistic and like very and not in like a good way either. And it's just
To this
like
day, I'm not in any mom's groups.
yeah, right, yeah, right.
I'm like, y'all scare me. No thanks. I'm not in any mom
Yeah.
groups.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And so, yeah, no, I think you know, nailed that for sure. And so for you, you know, as far as like postpartum recovery and things like that, like, was there anything, because it sounds like things went pretty well overall. Was there anything unexpected during it that you weren't really kind of like, you know, expecting or anything like that?
I would say a couple things like that I wasn't expecting was one, everybody says that they're going to help you and be there and just and it nah.
It's like that.
You
Have you
do
ever
not get as much help as everybody says they're going to
have you
give
ever
you.
watched The Office?
I never really got into The Office.
Okay, well,
Actually.
so there's this episode where like Jim and Pam have their baby, and like it's just like they're in the hospital and like they have their baby, and you know the nurses, everything like that, everything's good. But then like the next day, like they're out there, and it's just like, and then like the door gets shut, and it's just like the two of them, and they're like, oh shit, we're
Now
like
what do we do?
now what? Yeah, it's like oh damn. And I remember having that experience because like me and Jessica, like where we lived, we didn't have any family around or friends necessarily that could, you know, really like be there to help support us. I mean, that was our choice to like live like, you
Yeah.
know, not where our families were, but like, man, it makes a hell of a difference now. Like, especially having you know, our kid's 5 now, but like from like 3 to 5, like having that like village, having that like support system, like in that capacity, even if it's just like, you know, once a week or once every 2 weeks or something like that, somebody can, you know, watch the kiddo for a couple of hours. It's just like to have that like space to like, you know, do something other than like be a walking, living, breathing napkin. Like I feel like it can really, you know, make a difference. But yeah, no, I yeah, sorry to interrupt though. But that just reminded me of that, like that
Yeah.
scene.
And
Yeah.
well, like, it's not that we didn't have help, but like you realized how much it was truly like it was just us. Like it was just Aaron and I and
Yeah.
this little tiny being that neither of us knew what to do
Yeah.
with. And there was a lot of like, there was things that would come up that like, once you started talking about it, people would be like, oh yeah, that's normal. And it's like, it doesn't seem like, why did nobody tell me that, you know, at 2 weeks, his intestines were going to go through this big change and that he was going to scream at me and be in pain all day long. And there would be nothing I could do to help him. And
Yeah.
rubbing his belly only does so much, like, you know, and they're like, oh yeah, that's normal. And it's like, well, it's not normal for me. Like there
Yeah.
was just so many little things that nobody prepares you for, like your hair falling out
Oh
in
yeah.
massive clumps. Everybody
Yep.
talks about how great your hair gets during pregnancy, and like, yeah, I had some really nice hair during pregnancy, but you know, like
Then you have the
where
hormone
was
bounce.
all the like heads up about like, by the way, all the hair you don't lose during pregnancy, wait a few months.
Yeah.
Wait a few weeks to a few months, and you're going to lose all of that hair that you didn't lose for the whole 9 months you were pregnant, and it's going to come out in buckets. And it's like, is there something wrong with me? Is this from stress? Is this like, am I
Yeah.
doing something wrong? Am I doing something wrong with my nutrition? And this is
Mm.
why that's happening. And it's like, no, you just had an overload of progesterone while you
Yep.
were pregnant, and now your hormones are changing again. And now all that hair you didn't lose, guess what? Now you get
Yep.
to lose it now. And it's like, oh, well, all right. Well,
Yep.
that kind of sucks.
There's
Um, so there was things like that. I was and like the stress levels of it. Like, you know, it's everybody's like, it's gonna be stressful. You're not gonna sleep. That's an understatement.
oh yeah.
Like, it is next level stressful. And it's not even that you don't sleep. It's like this, like, I was joking that, well, at least when I sneeze, my eyes close for a little bit. So that's something. Because that felt like the only rest I got was like during a sneeze and my eyes would close. Because
Yeah.
even when you're asleep, you're
Oh
on
yeah.
all the time. Like, And don't get me wrong, like I wouldn't trade it now that he's here, and I wouldn't trade that experience because
Yeah.
I've grown through so much through it.
Hmm.
But I don't think anybody sets you up for it the
Yep.
way, like they warn you, but they don't. There
It's
could
hard to
be,
know until you're like in it, like, and
yeah,
like for us, like it was just exactly like how you were saying, like for the first, like, you know, man, like up until like he finally started to like have like good sleep patterns, like around like 4 to 6 months, and that's when we were finally like, okay, cool, like
yeah,
this is much better. But before that, like I was even trying to like work graveyard shift too, like during that time to some degree, and it was like it just did not work. You're so tired. Like you're so tired. Like I almost like don't remember some of it at this point because I think my
yeah.
brain was like trying to trick me
Let's
into
block
thinking
this
like
out.
it wasn't that bad. Like, you
I
know,
feel like your brain does that to trick you into having more.
yeah, I agree. Like, cause like we finally kind of came to the conclusion that we weren't going to. And so I ended up getting like a vasectomy and stuff. But like it was one of those things where like for like there was a period of time back in December of 2021, I think, where like I was like, I don't know what happened, but like my brain just forgot all the bad shit about like going through like the early parts of having of raising a kid. And it was just like, we should have another baby. And like I don't, and like that was like what was going through my head. And so for like a couple months we were just like really like weighing our options and like kind of like really like considering it. And then somebody said something to me. Actually, two things happened. We hung out with a pair we hung out with parents that for like a couple of hours that had two kids, and I was just watching and seeing how because I have a brother, but
Yeah.
like just watching them like beat the shit out of each other at
Uh-huh.
like when they were little, and just like the chaos and just everything. And I was like, huh, maybe I don't want to have another. And then one of my clients, because I was chatting with her about it, I was like, how is having multiple kids, and she was like, well, one is one, but two is 10. And I was just like, I was
Oh,
like,
that's a good way to put
yeah,
it.
I was like, oh, okay, well, we are. It was just like a combination of those things. Like my hormones calmed down a little bit, I guess, and I was just like, okay, I think we're not. I think we're good with one. I feel like my family is complete. Like it feels
Yeah.
whole right now, and I was like, I think we're good. So, but yeah, but basically, just kind of like what you're saying, like just man, that sleep deprivation, everything like that, like you're not prepared. You don't get prepared for it, and so
No.
yeah, and then I guess as far as like now that you're in mom mode, right? Like you're full on into motherhood now, 4
Full
months
on
in.
mom
Like
mode now, yeah.
how like as far as like strategies or routines or like shifts and things like that, like how did you have to adapt things to like for like time management, like managing your time and things like that? Like how is that different?
See, this is such a loaded question because I'm one of those. I'm a scheduled person. I
Yeah,
like my routines. I
yeah.
like to have routines. And now it's like you're a person who thrives on routine. And there's this tiny little human that now um has
Disrupts
like
all of it.
he's overtaken my whole schedule, and
Yeah,
he doesn't have routines yet. Like we're working on some,
yeah,
but overall his, like every time I get used to something he's doing and it's like, okay, we've got a pattern here, then he goes through a change, then
yeah,
he like, he goes through a developmental thing and he changes again, and it's like, oh, now I got to learn your new routine again to get my new. So having a routine doesn't really exist. And I
yeah,
think the best advice I could give to any mom is to give yourself grace and do what you can do when you can do it. Like
yeah,
some kids will nap for an hour.
yeah,
Great. Get a workout done. Get your sleep done. Get your work done. Get what you can get done in that hour. For me, he naps 20 minutes
yeah,
and then he's awake for like 2 hours, and then he, like, his wake windows are really wide and his
yeah,
sleep windows are really really small. So it's like, okay, feed myself
yeah.
because that's priority number 1. And then the second best piece of advice I think I could give is accept help, because
Mm,
there's like, at first there's a lot of people that are like, oh, we'll give you space with your new baby, and you're like, you kind of want that space and you kind of want to see if you can do it by yourself, even though it's super super frustrating, and there's a part of you that's like, I thought I was going to have more help than this.
yeah,
And then you get to a point where everybody wants to help all of
yeah,
a sudden. Take the help.
yep,
Take the help, because you're not going to have time for you if you don't.
yep,
So accept the help when it's there. It
Yep.
might not be there all the time, accept it when it is there.
Yep.
Aaron and I work out our schedules so that I work from home,
Yep.
but I work in the day mostly and
Yep.
he works in the evenings. So in
Yep.
the day, we're both home and we support each other
Mhm.
while I'm working. And
Yep.
then in the evening, I have the baby and he goes to work. And luckily for me right now, he's working shorter shifts. So, there's times in the day like that's when I get my workouts in
Yep.
is when Aaron is home and he can step in
Yep.
and be really present with him so that I don't have to worry about this nap's only going to be 20 minutes. And that's the other thing is sometimes you have to get that 20-minute workout in and be satisfied that
Yep.
you just moved your body for 20 minutes. That's fucking
Mhm.
awesome. It
Yep.
doesn't need to be an hour long, 2 hour long workout. You moved your body for 20 minutes. That's great. You
Yep.
held the baby and did squats. Good for you. Like I think it's about doing what you can do
Yep.
and accepting the help when it's there because
Mhm.
it's going to shift, it's going to change. Their little schedules are going to change and shift all the time. And just making Levi a part of it.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
we've been doing this, I don't know if you know cuz you work with Brian too. In the mastermind and with the coaches. Um so the coaches have been doing a mindset
Yeah.
challenge. And we've been doing this mindset challenge. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so hard because I have this like newborn thing. And I guess technically he's not a newborn anymore. But when we started the challenge, he was still considered a newborn.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have this newborn creature that has all of his own ideas of schedules. And like I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. And it's going to look different for me. And that's okay. I'm going to try it. And mine might look different than everybody else's, but that's okay. I'm going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
And it was just about making him a part of it and being
Mhm.
like, okay, well, when I go for my morning walk, he comes with me.
Yep.
If I'm doing my morning affirmations and he needs to be fed, well, I guess I'm feeding him and speaking my affirmations over this kid. So now I made him part of it. And
Yeah.
I added into the morning affirmations, I do a loving wish for him
Yeah.
every day that I speak out loud to him, usually while I'm nursing him, sometimes while he's playing, who knows, whatever he needs to be doing,
Yeah.
he's doing it. And I just work him into the routine. So I think there's and it's hard. That's been one of the biggest struggles for me as like a very routine,
Yeah.
like said, like I'm the fucking crazy person who eats the same breakfast every day. Like
Yeah.
I'm very, very routine.
Yeah.
So now it's been about like, okay, how do I add him into this routine? And as he's changing and his developmental needs are changing and needing different things from me, how do I work that in and how do I be flexible about my approach while still being very stubborn about my goals?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I think too, like what you mentioned, like something is better than nothing. Like something
Yeah.
is better than nothing, and just being adaptive. Like, because one thing to note, like, man, like, you know how they're always changing, like they're little, they're growing, they're developing, they're always changing. That's still
Always
going
changing.
on. Like, I feel like every time, like my kid's 5 now,
I was
and
going to say, how old is Finn now?
he
He's like
started
5.
kindergarten, and
Oh my
it's like,
goodness.
yeah, and it's like, man, like every time I look back and every time I feel like we finally get caught up and we're like, okay, we're in a groove, we got this routine going, it's like I get a new kid, and it's like, what? Like, I just got here. Like, you're just like always trying to catch this like moving target to try and like, just got to do your best. And like you said, give yourself grace in those moments. Cause man, like it goes by fast. And
Yeah.
like, I think that, you always like, I don't know, you're always kind of like, oh, I can't wait to see what this next stage is. Or you're like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling so much. I'm ready for this next stage to get here.
Or you get into a stage where you're like, I really like this
Yes.
stage. Can we just stay
Oh,
here? And they're like, nah, too
yeah,
bad.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that one, and then you're enjoying it, and so it's like time flies when you're having fun, and then that goes by the quickest, and you're just like,
Yep.
oh man, yeah. Parenthood is dynamic, and it is fun and beautiful,
Messy.
but also there's definitely times like especially when I was a stay at home dad, like I was like, man, like I feel like a prisoner in my house, like
Yeah.
it's tough.
The tiny
So
little warden.
yeah, oh, exactly, man.
Yeah. But I
Um,
will say, like, during my pregnancy, I worked out 4 to 5 days a week. Now
mm,
I work out 3 days a week
yeah,
because that's just what works better for me right now. And instead
yep,
of like beating myself up over it and being like, oh man, I wish I like there's a part of me that like, yeah, I would like to work out 4 days a week,
yeah,
but I can't get everything done I need to get done
yep,
and work out 4 days a week. Not right now. Maybe
yep.
maybe in a couple months things will change and I can go to 4 days a week, but right now it's like 3 days a week. I really hammer it out. Like I said, I utilize my partner, and
Yeah,
he
absolutely.
steps in and makes sure that he's like, all right, you do your workout. I got this. So, utilizing the help that's there when it's there,
Mm,
and just being flexible, like I said, flexible about the approach, but
mm,
stubborn about what the end goal is. And like the end goal is like, I want to set that healthy example. I
yeah,
know it's been proven that kids with active moms are more active kids. So I
yep,
want to stay that active mom. And so that he sees that example. And he's
yep.
just at the age where we have him in the Jolly Jumper now.
That's awesome.
So yeah. So now like the new the plan going forward is when he can spend like a little bit more time in there, because it's still new. So he's not in there for very long. I would
Yeah,
love to work out with him. He can
yeah,
do his jolly jumps and I can do workouts, and we can start building that bond
mm,
together. And then
yep.
as he can do more, make it part of my workout, that we work out together. And
I love
that's
that. It's like,
that's the
how can I
plan, but we'll
include, how
see.
can I make this work with them rather than like all the reasons again why I can't do it because they're there. Like for me,
Yeah.
like I remember like when we were it's probably when Finn was between like 8 months and like a year and a half, like there was a time like where I was doing a lot of, just because my schedule with work, like I had to do a lot of my workouts from at home, and
Yep.
like and I couldn't do it except around the times whenever he was home with me, while we were waiting for Jessica to get home from work. And so like I remember, like I was like, at first I was like, oh, like my routine's messed up, I'm frustrated, like I can't do my normal workouts. And then I was like, oh well, like I can just use him as like a weight,
Yeah.
and we can play, and it can be play, and it can be fun. and
Exactly.
and and it's just like, man, that kid's 5 now and he's giant, and it's like I can't imagine not being as strong as I am, and having him like jump on me and throw it. Like I would be broken into a million pieces by now if I wasn't like, if I didn't strength train, like no, just knowing
Right.
how he is now. And it's like, and it's cool too, because it's like I'm just seeing all these different stages. And we finally I'm at a stage now where I'm like, oh, trying to get him maybe to like work out a little bit. He'll do some things. He'll like pick up a stick sometimes, like I'm exercising. He'll just do kind of stuff like that. And he's
Yeah.
like, and he just jumping jack and just fun stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, like we're getting close. Like, cause I tested it out to see if he wanted to lift some weights with me. And like the attention span's not quite there yet, but
Yeah.
but you can tell
But
that he's
there's
got
some
a little bit of an
interest.
interest. And I'm like, I am setting the example.
I'm actually
So,
really glad that you brought up like the being strong enough, because like I'm small. You know me in real life.
Jack,
I'm a
but
small
small. Yeah.
human. I'm a tiny little human.
Yep.
Levi is 89th percentile for his
Mm,
height already for his
mm,
age, and he's a big boy. Like he's gonna be bigger than me. And
yeah.
I need to be able to wrangle him for as
Yeah.
long as I can. I don't want to not be able to pick my kid up and carry him if he needs to be carried. I don't want to not be able to hold him when he needs to be held because he's too big for me to hold on to.
Yeah.
Or, when his legs get tired, when he starts walking and we go places and his legs get tired, I don't want to have to
Mm,
miss out on experiences with him because I'm not strong enough to hold him and take him with me. So
yeah.
I think once, like I already kind of use him as my little weight and do stuff with him, but I want to keep doing those things
Yeah.
as he grows and I want to stay ahead of where his development is
Mm,
strength wise, so that I can always support him, and I can always, be that strong super mom.
yeah. Absolutely. Like there's a quote that's like, uh, as a parent, one day you won't realize it, but like you'll pick your kid up and put them down, and that'll be the last time that you pick them up. Like there'll come a time when there's like the last time that you'll pick your kid up and put them down.
Yeah.
And after I heard that, I was like, damn, like that's powerful. But then at the same time, like knowing, like with me, I was like, nah, I'm gonna be picking that kid up when he's 18 years old, because I'm gonna be like that
Just because
strong
you
mother.
can.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm gonna embarrass the shit out of him and just pick him up and things like that, because I'm gonna be jacked and he's gonna be like, yeah. But like that's kind of like, but I thought about that. I was like, damn, that's true for a lot of people. And I was like, and then in my mind, I was like, but not me. Like I'm not letting that happen. Like
Yeah.
so,
No.
but I'm gonna
No,
be
I'm
squatting him
gonna be
whenever I'm just
deadlifting this kid when he gets to be
yeah.
a teenager.
Shit. Cool.
Uh,
Sweet Shal. Thank you. I think that's about man, we've been on here for almost an hour now, and I don't want to keep you much. I feel like we could talk probably for a couple more hours on shit. But maybe that just means we need to have you on here again.
Yeah, we could do a part 2. Did
Yeah.
you want to touch on any nutrition stuff before we jump off of here?
Yeah, we can talk about nutrition real quick. So like nutrition, like, you know, it plays a pretty big, like, significant role as far as like pregnancy goes and postpartum. And so for you, how did you adapt your diet, you know, to these phases, and what advice could you give to others? Because like I know for like, I mean, because I have clients who are just like, you know, just had their babies, like, or within, you know, a couple of months of after having the babies, and they're breastfeeding. And so like, you know, one thing for sure is like, you know, making sure that you have enough calories, like whenever you're breastfeeding, because on average, like a woman's, depending on the woman and how much they're producing, like it's like 300 to 500 calories plus a day that
Per
you're
day.
burning just for feeding your kid. Yeah. So yeah, feel free to, go for it.
Yeah. So, and I joke that I found that I had a new superpower when Levi was born, is that I am a human cow. And I did not know that I was going to be a human cow. But I'm actually feeding 2 babies right now because I produce so much that I donate to another family who, their baby, when he was born, he had a tongue tie and a lip tie. So he didn't latch. And because he didn't latch, her body just didn't go into the production phase. She does produce, just not as much as what her baby needs because he didn't latch. So I donate to another family as well.
That's awesome.
And I attribute a lot of that to nutrition. I know that, like, you know, I come from being on top of my macros and knowing like what my body's supposed to have, and knowing how to maintain, and knowing how to bulk, and knowing how to lean out. But when I was in my pregnancy, I didn't take it as like it's a free for all to eat whatever I want because I'm gonna get big anyways. I was like, okay, my body needs 250-ish more calories per phase. So by the end of pregnancy, you should be eating 750 more calories per day than you were if you were maintaining before pregnancy. But your stomach is up in your throat because your organs have shifted around to make room for the tiny human. So it's not always a reality to eat like that. So it was a matter of like, okay, focusing on protein was big for me. Make sure I focus on my protein. Kids being born with protein deficiencies is really, really common actually in North America, because, you know, and I think part of it is because there's so many proteins that we get like food aversions to when we're pregnant. But being on top of like, okay, what does my body respond well to right now? And making sure that, like, you know, I got to a point where I was like, I'm not going to beat myself up over eating too much, or on a day that, like, you know, I didn't really have as much of an appetite. So what I did was just made sure I was prioritizing my protein no matter what throughout my whole pregnancy, and prioritizing fruits and vegetables. Simple as that. Drink a shit ton of water. Like,
you're going to be peeing a lot anyway,
minimum.
so you may as well drink a lot of water.
Right. And water doesn't have calories. You can just drink it all day. It's great for you. It's good for your skin. You got to stay hydrated, and it's good for baby too. And even still now, like, knowing that he gets his hydration from me. So it's a matter of, like, you know, staying on top of that like we were talking about before. Sometimes it's just about keeping the habit. So being somebody who already was drinking 3 liters of water a day, it's like, okay, that's still your minimum. Do your best to get it in. If you're napping all day and you didn't get it in, give yourself grace. But it was a matter of, for me, focusing on the proteins that my body was positively responding to. If something was a negative response, then I ate less of it. If it was a positive response, I was like, okay, I eat more of it. If it changed the next week, all right, we roll with the punches, and this week we're doing this. And then postpartum, it's been, you know, really making sure that what I'm putting in my body is something that I want going into his body. And that's actually been a challenge for me because with the PCOS, I have hormonal interactions with dairy, but I'm not lactose or dairy intolerant. It's just a hormonal interaction. And if I take my inositol, which I could take through my pregnancy as well to help my blood sugar insulin reaction, then I don't get those hormonal interactions. And so, but, you know, that's where a decent amount of calories were coming from yogurt. And he has a dairy allergy. It's not a lactose allergy, it's a dairy allergy. So now it's like, okay, now I have to find these things to put into my nutrition that I might not love, but
Yeah.
they're good for him. Like my body doesn't do good with pea protein,
Yeah.
but I've had to switch to vegan protein sources. I do bone broth as well, but I've had to switch to some vegan protein sources that I wouldn't normally eat
Yeah.
because I can't do whey in a protein shake, just to make sure that, sometimes when you're not hungry, but you need
Yeah.
something and you want to give your body that protein. So I don't do pea protein, and I found some other ones that, my body responds to well, and his body doesn't hate them, but oh my God, do they taste like Play-Doh? And so there's a part of me that's like, okay, you have to you're doing the best thing for him, but I
Yeah.
have to basically choke it down. How can I make this taste better?
Yeah.
So there's a bit of flexibility with nutrition, and just again, being aware of like his body needs protein, carbs, and fats.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what my beliefs are, what I prefer.
Yep.
His body needs all three of those things. He's getting everything from me. I
Yep.
need to make sure that the sources that I'm giving him are good. And that's probably also how I avoided gestational diabetes, because
Yeah.
um, historically and everything leading up to it I would have been in the category that was likely to
Yep.
get gestational diabetes. And I was like, it's not that I'm not going to eat. I love Nanaimo bars. They're these little like chocolate things. um I don't know if you guys have them in the States. Whenever
What
I
are they
talk
called?
about Nanaimo bars, but it's
No, we
like
don't. I don't think
the
so.
bottom layer is like almost like a brownie, like the bottom of a brownie, but there's like coconut and stuff in it, and then there's like a like almost like a buttercream layer and then chocolate on top. I don't know it's exactly what's in them, but they're disgustingly sugary. But if I wanted one, fuck yeah, I had one.
Oh,
And I
hell
didn't
yeah.
beat myself up over it. But it was
Yeah.
like, okay, balance.
Yep.
Like, yes, I'm going to have the Nanaimo bar, but I'm also going to have a really healthy, balanced dinner. And I'm also going to have a really healthy, balanced breakfast. And I'm also going to make sure that I'm getting lots of greens
Mm.
and stuff like that in for my lunch. So just kind of like being being aware that everything I was putting into my body was going into his body, and still is,
Yep.
has been a good growing experience for
Yeah.
me too, because it's like, okay, you got to be a little bit more on top, like,
Yeah.
and a little bit more on top of your nutrition than you should be. And like, luckily I do have some nutrition background, so
Yep.
like,
Yep.
I'm used to nutrition coaching, so I know what I should do and what I shouldn't do, but
Yep.
I also know how to make things fit my macros to my
Exactly.
advantage.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, it's not just about making things fit your macros, it's what gives him the best chance. And
Yep.
not only that, but like, he's going to grow up seeing how I eat. So if he grows
Mm.
up seeing me be like, vegetables, I'm
Yep.
just going to eat fast food, or I'm just going to eat synthetic food all day, that's going to teach him to have those same patterns. And
Yep.
then he's more likely to struggle with attention deficit. He's more
Yep.
likely to struggle with all sorts of different things. Whereas I would rather him grows up in a situation where it's like, I, I don't want him to eat things that he thinks are gross, but I
Yeah.
want him to be aware, like, this is fuel for my body, and this does this. This fuel does this, and this fuel does this. And
Yep.
then pick and choose what he likes in those
I'm
categories.
just excited too, because like as parents, like with that background, it's like you're just setting your kid up for so much success to be able to, like, they have the knowledge and to know, and
Yeah.
like, and at that point, it's like, they're able to make it at least an informed choice later on in life, like with
Yeah.
what they're, with their nutrition. One thing I was going to say too about, just as a tip, what something worked really well for us for our kid was the idea of what's called a no thank you bite. And it's just like, if it's anytime like there's something that he doesn't want to do or doesn't like or whatever, like food wise, like we're just like, that's fine. Like you don't have to eat all of it, but can you just do one no thank you bite just to see if you like it? Just because, we want to see, because if you try new things, you never know. And like, it's pretty interesting. Some of the things like we didn't think he would like at all, like he did end up liking. And then
Yeah.
he's like, I love this. And then there's other things where it's like, he didn't like it. And it's like, cool. Hey, you tried it. Like, thank you for, trying that. And right now we've been talking with him about, because he got really jealous when mommy and daddy got to go to Italy for like 2.5 weeks, and
Oh,
he
yeah.
didn't he didn't get to go. And we were like, well, our next big trip that we take, wherever we end up going, that's out of the country, like there's going to be a lot of different food there that you might not be used to because of the cultures. And so right now our big thing is like, well, if you want to be able to go on that trip with us, like
You have to
we
try
need you to
different
try
things.
these different food. There like an incentive there, that some positive reinforcement to try new things. And so that's
Oh,
been
I
working
like
really
that
well. He's been
idea.
liking that a lot lately too. Just to
Yeah.
to try new things. But the no thank you bite's been really really helpful.
That's exciting.
For
I look forward to the days where I can just put out like a tray of things and be like, you pick what you like.
Yeah.
It's my job to provide the healthy things. It's your job
Yep.
to decide what goes in your body.
Yep.
Because right now it's my job to decide what goes in his body, and there will be a point where he's going to be like, no, it's my job to decide, and I'm like, yep. I will provide the healthy things. You decide what goes in.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man, cool. Well, I think we'll end things there. I just want to say thank you for coming on here today and chatting with me for it's going to be an hour here in about 5 seconds, but like it's such a good time. This was a lot of fun, and we'll definitely have to do it again in the future. But other than that, guys, Shal, where can they find you at?
I'm hiding right now. They can find me. They can find me, snippets of me on Instagram. It's at Coach Shal, Coach_Shal. That's it. Facebook is Shal Friesen. TikTok, I'm on very, very little, but again, it's at Coach_Shal. And Austin, where can they find you?
They can find me at prechtelevate or Austin Prechtel on Facebook, but prechtelevate everywhere else. And so I was going to say too, I'll make sure to tag you in this so that way, that way you can find it easier, and maybe they can find you easier too. So
share it out.
Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me. Like I said, like big congratulations to you and all the cool things that you're doing. I see your clients are just like getting amazing results, and I'm hearing all these good things about you. And I actually I see you everywhere, and I see your content everywhere, and I'm like, yes, tell them, yes, get them. Like everything you put out is so smart. And I just love your approach. So, just want to give you a big shout out and say, thanks for having me on your show. And I can't wait to share this out to my friends and my following so that they can start interacting more with you too, because I think you have a lot of value to give to the world.
Thank you. I appreciate you, and I'm grateful to know you and grateful for our friendship. So yeah.
Likewise. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, guys, we'll end that there, and I'll talk to y'all in the next episode. Let's go.
All right.